Peace and Pan-Africanism, brothers and sisters. Peace and Pan-Africanism, kings and queens. Peace to the elders, peace to the youth. Peace to the college students, peace to the activists, peace to the revolutionary scholars and intellectuals, peace to the nation builders. And everyone knows that we need our nation builders. Brothers and sisters, this is the son of the sun. This is the S-O-N of the S-U-N, King Leo himself, the Prince of Pan-Africanism. And I want to say peace and Pan-Africanism to all my continental Africans. Peace and Pan-Africanism to my Caribbean Africans. Peace and Pan-Africanism to my Africans in Asia. Peace and Pan-Africanism to my Africans in the Ukraine dealing with the racism over there. We stand in solidarity with all of you over there being victimized by the white supremacy of the Ukraine, even while your African brothers and sisters around the world are showing sympathy for the white Ukrainians, but are not showing that same energy for the Africans in the Ukraine being victimized by the white supremacists that black people are so willingly supporting publicly and financially. Peace and Pan-Africanism to my Africans in Australia, to my Africans in Europe, those Africans in France, in Germany, in Austria, the United Kingdom. The Prince of Pan-Africanism will be returning to the UK this year. I said the Prince of Pan-Africanism will be returning to London, England this year. It's been about 3 or 4 years since my last visit, but I will be coming back to see my brothers and sisters in the UK. Peace and Pan-Africanism to my Canadian Africans, my Central American Africans, my South American Africans, and of course, my American Africans right here in the United Snakes of America, my Texas Africans, my Arkansas Africans, my Illinois Africans, my Michigan and California Africans, my Washington and Oregon Africans, my Arizona and Louisiana and Mississippi Africans, my North and South Carolina Africans, my Georgia, my Florida Africans, my DC and Maryland Africans, my West Virginia Africans, my Tennessee Africans, my Wisconsin Africans, and everyone in and between. This is the Prince of Pan-Africanism coming to you live with a serious message for the African family today. A serious message for the African family today. If you need to reach me, 215-989-9858, 215-989-9858, 215-989-9858. For the black parents out there, if you need a consultation involving your child, mental health, special education, IEP, paperwork, diagnoses, reach out to me. If you need that psychological evaluation report reviewed by an expert to let you know if it's the real deal or if it is full of shit. I said, if you need your child's psychological evaluation reviewed, whether it's a school psychological evaluation or a clinical psychological evaluation, if you need somebody to give you an honest opinion of that evaluation, whether you should throw the shit in the trash or whether you should live by that report, you can reach out to me. I charge $75 for consultation, $75 to review your child's paperwork, $75 to save them from the special education or ADHD machine. Please hit the Cash App, $ FDMG School, hit the Cash App, $ FDMG School, hit the Cash App, $ FDMG School, hit the PayPal, paypal.me/FDMG Academy, hit the PayPal, paypal.me/FDMG Academy. Today I want to talk about a very serious topic, which is the global African depopulation agenda. Those of you who have been following my work for the past 22 years, for those of you who have been following my work for the past 22 years, and more critically, the past 12 years, you know that I have lectured and spoke extensively on the global African depopulation agenda. We dealt with the Henry Kissinger National Security Study Memorandum 200, published in 1974, December of 74, which called for America to take a more active role in controlling the population of the world. You also heard me talk about President Jimmy Carter, who was the first democratically elected president since the Civil Rights Bill, but he was a Southerner from Georgia, and he was also a member of the CFR, and he put forward Global 2000, which was another depopulation agenda by the United States government to reduce the population of African people across the world. And right after Jimmy Carter's Global 2000 presidential study, the first documented case of AIDS was actually confirmed in the United States. Well, today, I want to talk a little bit about what we've all been talking about the past 2 to 3 years, and that is the COVID as a weapon of mass destruction. Omicron as a weapon of mass destruction. The Delta variant as a weapon of mass destruction. And I want to tell you where all of this is coming from. I want to explain to you in no uncertain terms where all of this is coming from, brothers and sisters. Allow me to begin. Allow your brother, Dr. Ifa Tunde, to begin with an article from The Guardian. The Guardian is a very well-respected, mainstream, yet critical periodical that puts out very good information. Yes, it is white supremacist, but they tend to tell the truth more than most other news publications. As I have taught you before, there's about 5 European conglomerates. There's about 5 European conglomerates that control all the news that you receive. They control the book publishing houses. They control Amazon. They control the newspapers, the magazines. They control YouTube, the social networks, cable television. There's 5 European conglomerates that control all the news that you get. So it is very difficult to be an African in this world and get true information about the African reality, because all the information, most of the information, 99% of the information that we receive is coming to us from sources controlled by the Bilderbergs. It's coming to us from sources controlled by the Rockefellers. It's coming to us by sources controlled by the Federal Reserve, the Order of Rome, the Rothschilds, and so forth and so on. So it is very difficult to get accurate information as an African living in the 21st century. But in my opinion, The Guardian, I do not endorse it. I don't endorse European institutions or periodicals, but The Guardian, I would argue, is probably one of the more reliable sources of information coming from the global white power structure. So the name of this article is called The Last Days of a White World. I'm going to read this to you as a pretext so you can understand, overstand, and understand where I'm going to take you over the next 30 to 45 minutes. I'm not going to keep you long. I'm not going to keep you long, but I want to read this because I think this article sets up perfectly why COVID has been released, why the Omicron variant has been released, why the Delta variant has been released, why the new strands of COVID has been released, and why we have just heard last month, Black History Month, that for the first time in several decades, a new variant of HIV/AIDS, has been confirmed in the Netherlands. Shout out to my Dutch brothers and sisters over there in the Netherlands. Shout out to my Dutch brothers and sisters, my Dutch Africans over there in the Netherlands. Dr. Umar hasn't been to Amsterdam and Rotterdam since 2014. I said the Prince of Pan-Africanism hasn't been to Amsterdam or Rotterdam since 2014. But I look forward to coming back. I was going to go to the Netherlands in 2020, but COVID hit. I was scheduled to come back to the Netherlands in 2020, but COVID hit. But we will soon work that out. But let me get back to this. For my international Africans, if you want to communicate with me, you can add me on WhatsApp. My international Africans who live outside of the U.S., if you need to connect with your big brother, Dr. Ifa Tunde, you can add me on WhatsApp, 215-989-9858, 215-989-9858. WhatsApp for my international Africans, regular text for my American Africans. WhatsApp for my international Africans, regular text for my American Africans. My international Africans, make sure you hit the PayPal, paypal.me/FDMG Academy to donate to the first revolutionary institution for black boys in the 21st century, purely and truly independent. No European funding, no European approval, no European participation. The Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey RBG International Leadership Academy. So my international Africans, make sure you are an official donor. Make sure you are an official donor. Hit the paypal.me/FDMG Academy, paypal.me/FDMG Academy for my international Africans. For my American Africans, you can hit the Cash App, $FDMG School, or the PayPal if you choose. American Africans, you can hit the Cash App, $FDMG School, or PayPal if you choose. The name of the article, which was written September the 3rd of 2000. Now, this article is 22 years old. This article is 22 years old, written at the turn of the 21st century. But the information in this article that was written at the turn of the 21st century explains everything that has been happening these 22 years of the 21st century. Snow bunnies, hop off the live right now. Snow bunnies, hop off the live right now. Snow bunnies, if you're going to stay on the live, please be respectful. This is an African conversation. I understand that your white privilege has made you feel comfortable invading the private spaces and conversations of African people. I do not want you here because this is a conversation with my people. But I understand your white privilege gives you the right to invade African space. And one day we as African people are going to do something about that. So if you are here, members of the Neanderthal community, please be respectful. Please be respectful of members of the original man and woman community of this planet Earth. I said, please be respectful. All non-Africans who choose to be on this conversation, please be respectful of your genetic parents. That is the black man and woman, the original man and woman of the planet Earth. We are the genetic parents of all of you. We are the genetic parents of the European. We are the genetic parents of the Asian. We are the genetic parents of the Asiatic. We are the genetic parents of the Latinos, the Mexicans, the Indians, the East Indians, the Native American. We are your genetic parents. And as your genetic parents, we ask the respect that is due from a child to his parent. I'm not being disrespectful. I'm being honest. But given the fact that I am unapologetically African, given the fact that I'm the father and the founder of the unapologetically African, unapologetically black movement, I could care less about what you think. People who are hungry for liberation don't care about what people think about them. I said people who are hungry for liberation don't care about what other people think about them. The most honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey, the man who gave us this flag, the most honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey said, men who are in earnest are not afraid of consequences. Garvey said, men who are in earnest are not afraid of consequences. So let me get into the article, September 3rd, 2000. The Guardian, in the name of the article, The Last Days of a White World. The Last Days of a White World. The Last Days of a White World. We are near a global watershed, a time when white people will not be the majority in the developed world. We are near a global watershed, a time when white people will not be in the majority in the developed world, Britain included. It was news and no news. The most significant milestone and one of the most profound changes to affect the United States in the past century. and yet a non-event. Last week, the United States Census Bureau issued figures showing that non-Hispanic whites make up 49% of the population of California. Anglo-Saxon whites are already a minority in Hawaii and the District of Columbia. Now they are an ethnic minority in the country's most populous state, the one most usually identified with the American dream. It's my hope we can all see our state's diversity as a cause for celebration and not consternation, said California's Lieutenant Governor Cruz Bustamante, a Latino. Robert Newby, a white shop owner who has lived in Los Angeles for 40 years, echoed his optimism. Quote, "This confirms that what most of us have thought for years. I am happy for there to be more immigrants. By and large, they work harder and have more money to spend." As recently as 1970, 8 out of 10 Californians were white, fueled by immigration at its highest rate since the start of the last century. The higher fertility rates, the Asian and Latino populations of California have risen by almost a third since 1990. At the same time, with limited immigration and low birth rate, the population of non-Hispanic whites has fallen by 3%. By 2040, Hispanics are expected to be the overall majority in the state. Where California goes, the rest of America is predicted to follow. At present, 72% of the U.S. population is non-Hispanic white. At present, 72% of the U.S. population is non-Hispanic white. The U.S. Census Bureau predicts that non-Hispanic whites will become a minority between 2055 and 2060. The U.S. Census Bureau predicts that non-Hispanic whites will become a minority between 2055 and 2060. Let me interject. This article was written in the year 2000. We are now in the year 2022. By 2055, 33 years from now, 33 years from now, the American non-Hispanic white population is predicted to be a minority in 33 years. The reason this is important for you to understand, brothers and sisters, is everything being done right now, beginning with the release of Omicron and all its variants, all the abortion and hysterectomy, all the mass incarceration, the black on black crime, the police genocide, everything being done right now is being done to reverse a trend. Please hear me well. Please hear me well. Please hear me well. Everything being done right now is being done to reverse a trend that is turning Europeans into a significant global minority, not only in America, but across the world. I continue reading. Not everyone likes the new face of America. White far-right extremists predict a breakup of the Union. Thomas Chittum, a New Jersey-based Vietnam War vet, declared in his book Civil War II that the United States, like Yugoslavia, will shatter into new, ethnically based nations. He says, quote, "America was born in blood. America suckled on blood. America gorged on blood. And America grew into a giant. And America will drown in blood." That's coming from a white Vietnam War veteran. I want to repeat what he said. I want to repeat what he said. I want to repeat what he said. This white Civil War veteran who wrote a book called Civil War II says, quote, "America was born in blood. America suckled on blood. America gorged on blood and grew into a giant, and America will drown in blood." The article goes on to say, the separatists have set up groups such as Americans for Self-Determination. One of the founders, Jeff Anderson, said, quote, "We are suggesting that the United States be partitioned into states for blacks, states for whites, states for Hispanics, and so on, along with multiracial states for those who wish to continue with this experiment. Did you hear that? He called integration an experiment. He called multiculturalism an experiment. Let me continue to read. Now is the time to begin such a multiracial dialogue about separatism. He said it's time to begin a multiracial dialogue about separatism before a storm of violent racial conflict erupts. The shifting sands of the United States reflect wider and highly controversial changes elsewhere in the world. It is an area in which few demographers dare to tread for fear of being accused of racism. Quote, "You cannot quote me. A word out of place and I get crapped on from a very great height," said one academic. "Whatever you say, you are deemed a racist." End quote. I continue reading. The past millennium was more than anything the era of the whites. Just 500 years ago, few had ventured outside their European homeland. Listen to this. Listen critically to what I'm reading from this white newspaper. 500 years ago, just before Christopher Columbus, 500 years ago, just before Christopher Columbus, few Europeans had left their homeland of Europe. Listen up, brothers and sisters. Listen up, brothers and sisters. 500 years ago, few Europeans had left their homeland of Europe. Then, with several acts of genocide clearing the way, Europeans settled in North America, South America, Australia, New Zealand, and to a lesser extent, Southern Africa. I want to repeat that because this author is dropping science that you might gloss right over if your third eye is not activated. This article is dropping science that many Negropeans might gloss right over if your third eye isn't open. So let me reread that. The past millennium was more than anything the era of whites. Just 500 years ago, few whites had ventured outside their European homeland. And then after that, with several acts of genocide clearing the way, Europeans left Europe and settled in North America, South America, Australia, New Zealand, and to a lesser extent, Southern Africa. But now, the article says, around the world, whites are falling as a proportion of population. The United Nations collects and produces a vast array of statistics on population, but produces none relating to race or ethnic origin. Few countries collect their own figures on ethnicity. In Europe, only the United Kingdom and the Netherlands keep track of race as a population. However, the United Nations State of the World Population, 1999. This is significant. The United Nations published a study called State of the World Population, 1999. They did this on the eve of the 21st century and predicted that 98% of the growth of the world by 2025 will occur in lesser developed regions, especially Africa and Asia. Let me say it again. I hope you're listening. I hope you're listening. I hope you're listening. The United Nations State of the World Population in 1999 predicted that 98% of the growth of the world's population by 2025 will take place in Africa and Asia. The most significant reason for this lower birth rate in rich countries, which means white countries, the most significant reason for this lower birth rate in rich countries, which means white countries, in 61 countries, the lower birth rate is due that rich people, white people, are no longer having enough babies to replace themselves. Rich people, which means white people, are no longer having enough babies to replace themselves. Now, let me say this. In comes Ifatunde analysis. In comes Ifatunde analysis. They want you to think, because The Guardian is still a racist publication, they want you to think that civilized people don't have a lot of children. They want you to think that civilized people, by which they mean white people, don't have a lot of children. I would venture to argue the contrary. I would venture to argue that the declining birth rate of Anglo-Europeans around the world, the declining birth rate of Anglo-Europeans around the world isn't due to the fact that they're civilized and therefore don't want children. It's due to the fact, and this is documented historically, no disrespect to European women, no disrespect to European women, no disrespect to European women, but historically, and this is well documented, white women are not as fertile as African women. White women of Anglo-Saxon ethnicity are the least fertile of all women in the world. We can argue that that is due to your genetic recessivity. We can argue that that is due to your melanin deficiency. We can argue that that is due to the aftershock of your ice trauma. We can argue all the racial, ethno-scientific reasons we want. But regardless of the reasons put forth, the white female is the least fertile of all women in the world. So the declining birth of the European woman is not due to the fact that she doesn't want children. It's due to the fact she has trouble conceiving, and after conception, she has trouble holding on to the babies in her womb. Go and do your research. This is well documented. It is not civilization, but genetics. It is not civilization, but biology. It is not civilization, but DNA that has crippled the white woman's ability to reproduce herself as much as women of other races. Let me continue. And they have brainwashed African women into not having children. And this is one of the reasons why the rainbow agenda, and we all know what the rainbow agenda is, the alphabet rainbow community. This is why that movement was unleashed on African people globally during the presidency of Barack Hussein Obama. I'm going to say it again. One of the reasons Barack Obama was put in office was to perpetuate an alphabet community rainbow agenda against African repopulation. I don't care how you slice the cake. The rainbow agenda is a war on African repopulation. I'll say it one more time. The rainbow agenda is a war on African existence. Let me continue the article. See, I don't use my platform to gossip about people. I don't use my platform to sensationalize other people's business. I don't use my platform to talk about sports and talk about celebrities. I don't use my platform to try to criminalize Africans from other parts of the world. I come on here for one reason and one reason only: to raise your consciousness. I come on here for one reason and one reason only: to raise your consciousness. My sole existence is for the liberation of African people and the perpetuation of African civilization. I said my sole existence is for the liberation of African people and the perpetuation of African civilization. And if your life is not dedicated to the liberation of African people and the perpetuation of African civilization, I would dare argue. I would dare argue. I would dare argue. If your life is not dedicated fully to the liberation of African people and the perpetuation of African civilization, I would say that your life is a waste of melanin. Your life is a waste of African DNA. Your life is a waste of African spiritual ashe. I said, if your life is not dedicated to the liberation of African people and the perpetuation of African civilization, your life is a waste of African DNA. Your life is a waste of African melanin, and your life is a waste of African spiritual ashe. Don't compare me to no other scholar, because there's no other scholar like Dr. Umar. Don't compare me to no other personality in the conscious community. There's no other personality in the conscious community like me. Don't you compare me to no other educator, political scientist, author, psychologist, Pan-Africanist, because there's none on the world stage who can fit these size 13 shell tops. Don't play with me. Let us continue. Let us continue. The United Nations State of the World Population 1999 predicted that 98% of the growth of the world's population by 2025 will occur in Africa and Asia. The most significant reason for this is lower birth rates in rich countries. In 61 countries, the white countries, mainly the rich white countries, people are no longer having enough babies to replace themselves. In the white countries, people are no longer having enough babies to replace themselves. In the white countries, people are no longer having enough babies to replace themselves. The article goes on. In its World Population Profile, 1998, the United States Census predicted that by the second decade of this century, all the net gain in world population will be in developing countries. That means black countries. The future, quote, 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 the future of human population growth has been determined and is being determined in the world's poorer nations. See, for the white power structure, poor Africans around the world having babies is a problem. According to the logic of the white power structure, poor Africans around the world having babies is a problem. According to the logic of the white power structure, poor African people around the world having babies is a problem, but they don't tell you why it's a problem. If African people don't have a problem having babies, why does it matter to the white people? If poor black women in America don't have a problem having babies, why is it a problem to white people? If Africans in Jamaica, in Haiti, if Africans in Bermuda, in Barbados, in Trinidad, in Turks and Caicos, in St. Croix, in St. Thomas, if Africans in Brazil, if Africans in Mexico who are poor want to have children, why is it any concern to the white power structure? Let me tell you why. Let me tell you why. The reason the white power structure is afraid of poor Africans having babies Listen to me well. Listen to Dr. Ifa Tunde well on this next point, and then I will return to the reading. The reason the white power structure doesn't want poor black women around the world having babies is if you have too many babies and you can't feed those babies, you can't clothe those babies, you can't house those babies, you can't educate those babies, you can't employ those babies, then guess what will happen? What naturally happens in the human condition when a certain population is not able to get their needs met? You know what happens? Democracy will crumble and revolution will begin. Democracy will crumble and revolution will begin. They don't care about starving African babies. They don't care about Africans going hungry. They don't care about homeless black people. They don't care about uneducated black people because they created the hunger in Africa. They created the homelessness in America. They created the unemployment in the Caribbean. They created the poverty of the African world. So they don't care about the problems that they create. But they know that if too many black people are born and they can't get a decent meal, and they can't get a decent house, and they can't get decent clothing, then guess what? They will rebel against the global white power structure. I have told you all over and over again. I have lectured, I have preached on every continent except Australia, and I have told you over and over again. The greatest fear of the white power structure is a global African revolution. It's when the African poor, the global African poor, it is when the global African poor rise up against the black aristocracy of the world and the white power structure of the world. They don't care about you being hungry. They don't care about you being homeless. They don't care about you being impoverished. What they care about is an uprising, a full-scale revolution by hungry African youth, hungry African Caribbean youth, hungry African continental youth, hungry African American youth, hungry African Canadian youth, hungry African British youth, hungry African Central and South American youth. They understand that the oppression of African people is sowing the seeds. The white power elite understands. The white power elite understands that the oppression of African people is sowing the seeds of a global youth African revolution. One of the greatest ironies of global white supremacy, one of the greatest contradictions of global white supremacy is that its oppression will give birth to its destruction. Did you hear me? I'm going to say it again. Don't steal my talking points. You can quote me, but you better quote me by name. I'm sick and tired of black scholars, black entertainers, black so-called fake woke leaders and podcasters stealing my talking points. I don't want to hear none of my information come out of your mouth if you don't quote me. I don't want to hear none of my information coming out of your mouth if you don't quote me. I said white supremacy will actually give birth to the revolution that will destroy it. White oppression will give birth to the African revolution that will destroy it. If too many Africans are born, no military, listen, no bomb, no tank, no gun, no missile can stop a global African revolution that is uncompromising in its agenda, that cannot be called off, that is not being led by cowards. And I want African youth, and I'm speaking of all African youth. This is a Pan-Africanist movement. This is a Pan-Africanist movement. This is a Pan-Africanist movement. It is all African youth, from America to Brazil to Costa Rica, to the Africans of Cuba, the Africans of Puerto Rico, the Africans of Haiti, the Africans of Jamaica, the Africans of Guatemala, the Africans of Toronto and Montreal, the Africans of France and Germany and the UK, the Africans of Nigeria. See, Nigeria and Ethiopia are the two most populated countries in sub-Saharan Africa. Nigeria and Ethiopia. On the west side of the mother continent, we have Nigeria. On the east side of the mother continent, we have Ethiopia. On the west side, Nigeria is the most populated African country. On the east side, Ethiopia, the cradle of civilization. All praises due to the Most High. All praises are due to the Most High, that the cradle of civilization, Ethiopia, is the second most populated country on the continent. And then you have Egypt. But Egypt is colonized by the Arab. Egypt is colonized by the Arab. Now, let me say this about the Arab and his politics. I want all my Africans, all my Pan-Africanists, listen. No disrespect to my Muslims who are African. No disrespect to my Muslims who are African. No disrespect to my African Muslims, but I have to be unapologetically African. No disrespect to my Africans who are Muslim. I respect Islam. No problems with your religion, but I need you to hear me. At the end of the day, the Arab is a cousin to the European. At the end of the day, the Arab is the cousin to the European, and the Arab, his slavery of the African, predates his European cousin's slavery of the African. I want you to understand, overstand, and understand me. I want you to understand, overstand, and understand me. I want you to understand, overstand, and understand me. The Arab is the cousin of the European. At the end of the day, they are family. At the end of the day, they are family. And the Arabs' racism against the African and the Arabs' slavery against the African predates the European oppression of the African. And I'm saying that to say it would be very dangerous. It is not in the best interest of the coming African revolution. It is not in the best interest of the coming African revolution for we as African people to try to broker a deal with the Arab. We as African people cannot afford to broker a deal with the Arab, because at the end of the day, I believe that the Arab will side with his European cousin. At the end of the day, the Arab will side with his European cousin. At the end of the day, the Arab will side with his European cousin. I'm going to say this again. We as African people have no friends. We have no allies. We have no comrades. We have no race on this planet that wants to see African people return to the throne. There's no race on this planet who wants to see Africans return to the throne. So if you are a multicultural African, if you are a multicultural African, if you are a multicultural African, you are a traitor to your race, because no other race on the planet Earth wants to see African people rise. Nobody wants to see African people rise. So the only deals we're going to broker will be between Africans, Caribbean Africans, and South American Africans. The only deals we're brokering is Central American Africans and North American Africans. The only deals we're broking is Australian Africans and continental Africans. The only deals we are brokering will be amongst one another. When you understand that the planet Earth is a political chessboard, when you understand that the planet Earth is a political chessboard, when you understand that the planet Earth is a political chessboard, when you understand that the planet Earth is a political chessboard, you understand how ridiculous it is that we have organizations in America that are trying to put American Africans against immigrant Africans. Now you see how ridiculous it is for these Negro tribal groups in America that want to disidentify from Africa, disidentify from their African ancestry, disidentify from their African DNA. Now you see how ridiculous it is for us to have organizations that are trying to separate themselves from their brothers and sisters in other parts of the world. I need all Africans in the world to stand together as one family. See, let me explain something, and then I'm going to get back to the article. But the ancestors need me to explain this. Let me explain something before I get back to the article, because the ancestors want me to explain this. There's only one continent on the planet Earth. There's only one continent on the planet Earth. There's only one continent on the planet Earth that is dominated by a single race of people. I'm going to say it again. I hope my Africans and I hope my continental Africans are listening. I hope my I hope my Caribbean Africans are listening. I hope my Asiatic and my European and my Canadian Africans are listening to me right now. There's only one continent on the face of the earth that is geographically dominated by one race, and that is Africa. Africa is not only the richest continent on earth, it is the only continent, despite slavery, despite colonization, despite neo-colonization, despite economic rape, despite the black aristocracy selling us out and the black bourgeoisie selling us out and the Negropean elite selling us out, Africa remains the only continent of 6. Africa remains the only continent of 6. Europe is not a continent. Europe is Western Asia. Europe is not a continent. Europe is Western Asia. Europe is not a continent. Europe is Western Asia. I will not call Europe a continent. It is a part of Asia. The reason they call Europe a continent is because the Neanderthal has no home. His home is the cave. The reason they call Europe a continent is because the Neanderthal has no home. His home is the cave. The reason they call Europe a continent is because the Neanderthal has no home. His home is the cave. Understand, overstand, and understand me. Understand, overstand, and understand me. Understand, overstand, and understand me. Next year, 2023, I'm having a Team Pan-African Conference on every continent. Next year, 2023, I'm having a Team Pan-African Conference on every continent. There will be a Team Pan-African Conference in Australia to organize the global African revolution. There will be a Team Pan-African Conference in Europe to organize the global African revolution. There will be a Team Pan-African Conference in Africa, a Team Pan-African Conference in Asia, Africa, Australia. There will be a Team Pan-African Conference in North America. There will be a Team Pan-African Conference in the Caribbean islands to organize the youth. We are preparing for 2050. We are preparing, brothers and sisters, the global youth of the world. And I am hereby officially designating myself until such time that I am selected and elected by the youth of the planet. Dr. Umar Ifa Tunde is hereby officially declaring myself the acting president of the global African youth movement. I am declaring myself the acting president of the global African youth movement. If there's someone better suited, submit his name. If there's someone better suited, submit her name. But until that time, I am the acting president of the global African youth movement under the leadership of the IMIPAP, the International Movement for the Independence and Protection of African People, known as Team Pan-African. Let us continue. Let us continue. Some of you will say, well, Dr. Umar, what about the Bishop Turner National Independent Black Political Movement? What about the Bishop Turner National Independent Black Political Movement? And to that I say, we still pushing forward. Because one thing you need to understand about Pan-African, Pan-Africanism, and Pan-Africanist, one thing you must understand about revolutionary Pan-Africanism and revolutionary Pan-Africanists, we fight the local fight and the global fight at the same time. We take care of business where we are, and we take care of the vision of Pan-Africanism at the same time. We take care of where we are, and we take care of the vision of Pan-Africanism at the same time. Let us continue. So Africa is the only continent dominated by one race of people. The richest continent in the world is dominated by the original occupants of that land. This is where white supremacy messed up. This is where white supremacy messed up. This is where they should have never allowed us to continue to be the predominant population on our own ancestral soil over the richest resources on the planet. Europe is not a continent. Asia is not dominated by one race. Asia has the white man, Russia. Asia has the brown man, Chinese. Asia has the dark brown man, the East Indians. Asia has 3 different races on one continent. You got the whites of Russia, the light browns of China, and the medium browns of East India. I said Asia has the whites of Russia, the light browns of China, the medium browns of India. North America has Native Americans. North America has Mexicans. North America has the white man. Australia has original Aborigines of Africa and white folks. No continent is as thoroughly controlled by one race geographically as is Africa. Africa is the only continent in the world 99% covered by African people. That is exactly what we need for a global African revolution. That is exactly what we need for a global African revolution. That's why they sent Barack Obama over there during his presidency to build U.S. military bases in Africa. That's why they sent Barack Obama over there to build U.S. military bases in Africa. In fact, let's see where they're located. Let's see where they're located. Since 2007, the U.S. government's Africa Command has not been able to find a home on the African continent until Barack Obama. This is why Barack Obama was made the president of the United States. This is why Barack Obama was made the president of the United States, because they could not find an African nation to let African build their headquarters. So they had to put Barack Obama in office. Barack Obama was put in office to go to Africa and convince the African Union and the African nations to put U.S. military bases on African soil and to push the rainbow agenda on African soil. And y'all call Obama a hero. And y'all call Obama a hero. Let's look at where the African bases are. Let's look at where the bases are. Y'all ready? The U.S. military has bases in Djibouti, Uganda, Kenya, Gabon, Ghana. I didn't know that. I didn't know there was an AFRICOM in Ghana. I'm going to have to, wait a minute, don't tell me. The land of Pan-Africanism. Don't tell me the Republic of Ghana. Don't tell me that the home of Osajafo, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, don't tell me that the Republic of Ghana has allowed a U.S. military base on Ghanaian soil. Somebody please tell me that's not true. Somebody please tell me that's not true. Somebody please tell me that Ghana does not have an AFRICOM U.S. military base. Somebody please tell me that the land of Osajafo, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, does not have a military base in the land of Ghana. Please tell me that's not true. Burkina Faso, please tell me the land of Thomas Sankara does not have a military base. Please, brothers and sisters. Brothers and sisters, please tell me. Brothers and sisters, please tell me that Burkina Faso, the land of Thomas Sankara, does not have a AFRICOM U.S. Don't tell me this man died for nothing. Don't tell me this great African revolutionary, Thomas Sankara, Pan-Africanist, didn't die for nothing. Don't tell me Burkina Faso has an AFRICOM U.S. military base. Don't tell me Senegal has an AFRICOM U.S. military base. Niger has an AFRICOM U.S. military base. Chad has an AFRICOM military base. Mali has an AFRICOM military base. Cameroon has an AFRICOM military base. Somalia has an AFRICOM military base. And Kenya, the land of Dedan Kimathi, the land of the Mau Mau, the land of the Revolutionary Land and Freedom Army that liberated the lands and resources of Kenya. Don't tell me they have a U.S. military base. Lord, brothers and sisters, this is why the Ifa Tunde think tank is coming. This is why we need a Pan-African think tank. This is why we need the Pan-African think tank, because as we fight for survival, we are being sold out by Negropeans in Africa. As we fight for survival, we are being sold out by Negropeans in Europe. As we fight for survival, we are being sold out by Negropeans in South America. And we're being sold out by Negropeans in Central America. And we're being sold out by Negropeans in the United States of America. Brothers and sisters, the time is too critical for inner fighting. The time is too critical for backbiting. The time is too critical for slanderization of African representatives, brothers and sisters. Expose out in the open those who do wrong, or keep your mouth shut. Expose out in the open those who do wrong, or keep your mouth shut. That's how you deal with slander. That's how you deal with gossip. If you ain't willing to say it into the public, don't say it at all. If you ain't willing, if you got something to say about Dr. Umar Tunde, say it in public or don't say it at all. If you got something to say about the most honorable Marcus Garvey, say it in public or don't say it at all. If you got something to say about Osajifo, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, say it in public or don't say it at all, brothers and sisters. Say it in public or don't say it at all. Africa, the richest continent, the oldest continent, is the only continent totally dominated by one race, her own children, the African race. Now you know why Barack Obama was sent to Africa. Now you know why Barack Obama was made president of Africa. Excuse me, president of the United States, so he can go to Africa and do what he did. So he could go to Africa and do what he did. Brothers and sisters, let me get back to the article. White people in the United States will become a minority between 2055 and 2060. Let's continue. Let's continue. Let's continue. The global center of gravity is changing. In 1900, Europe had a quarter of the world's population and 3 times the population of Africa. By 2050, Europe is predicted to have 7% of the world's population. By 2050, Europe is predicted to have 7% of the world's population. By 2050, Europe is predicted to have 7% of the world's population. Everything being done right now. Everything being done right now by the white power structure is to reduce the population of African people before it's too late. Is designed to reduce the population of African people before it is too late. AIDS is designed to reduce the population of African people before it is too late. Nutricide, cancer, is designed to reduce the population of African people before it is too late. By 2050, Europe will only have 7% of the world's population. Did y'all hear what I just said? Did you hear what I just said? I hope you understand, understand, and overstand what I just said to you. By 2050, Europe will only have 7% of the world's population. That is why they are so aggressively trying to depopulate African people. This is why the rainbow agenda is so powerful. This is why they're pushing the rainbow agenda in the public schools. This is why they're pushing the rainbow agenda in Hollywood. This is why they're pushing the rainbow agenda in the media. This is why they're pushing the rainbow agenda in Africa. We live on a global chessboard. And nobody wins a chess game only looking at one piece of the board. Nobody wins a chess game only looking at one piece of the board. Let me continue. I'm almost done. The aging and declining population of white nations have prompted forecasts and calls for more immigration from the young and growing populations of developing nations to come back home and make up the shortfall. Did y'all hear what I just said? Why is America bringing Ukrainians to America? Why is America bringing Ukrainians to America? Why is America bringing Ukrainians to America? To make up for the declining population in this country. Why are they bringing Afghanis to America? To make up the declining population in this country. And here's the irony. As white countries call for their children to return home, the best of Africa is running to white nations to get their intelligence exploited. I said, while white countries are calling their children to come back home to make their country white again, Africa is suffering from the intellectual slave trade. Africa is in the middle of an intellectual slave trade. Black America is in the middle of an intellectual slave trade. Black Caribbean, Black Canada, Black Europe is in the middle of an intellectual slave trade where the best and brightest African youth, the best and brightest of African youth around the world, the best and brightest of African youth around the world are being recruited by white universities, are being recruited by the World Bank, being recruited by the International Monetary Fund, being recruited by the Council on Foreign Relations. The best and brightest of African minds are being recruited by the United Nations, being recruited by the Rothschilds, being recruited by the Rockefellers. We are letting our oppressor steal the intellectual genius of African youth. And you know how they're able to do this? The reason they're able to steal the best and brightest of African youth is because we don't have a global African educational system. We don't have a global African collegiate system. We don't have a global African educational system. And we don't have a global African collegiate system. That's right. Every black mother and black father in the world, every black mother and black father in the world, every black mother and father in Africa, every black mother and father in the United States, every black mother and father in the Caribbean, every black mother and father in Brazil, every black mother and father in Toronto, in Montreal, in France, in Austria, in Germany, in London, in Birmingham, in Luton, in Wolverhampton, every black mother and father wants to send their child to a white university. Every black mother and father in the world wants to send their child to a white university so they can get recruited by a white company so they can spend the rest of their life working for the white power structure. And we call them success stories. And we call them success stories. And we call them success stories. Brothers and sisters, I am here to finish the work. I am here to finish the work of the great Pan-Africanists who have come before me. I told you that if your life is not dedicated to the planting of this flag on every single continent, if your life is not devoted to the liberation of African people and the perpetuation of African civilization and consciousness, then your existence is a waste of African DNA. Your existence is a waste of African melanin, and your existence is a waste of African spirit. I am unapologetic. I will not take back my words for anybody. I am unapologetic, and I will not take back my words for anybody. They are in the act of reducing African people because they understand that they are in the last days of white supremacy. They are in the last days of white supremacy. They are in the last days of white supremacy. In less than 30 years, the European will be 7% of the world's population. In less than 30 years, in your lifetime, the European will be less than 7%. I just read it to you. These are not my words. This is coming from one of the most respected journals, magazines, and newspapers in the world. Let's continue. In Britain, shout out to my UK Africans. I'll see you later this year. Shout out to my Africans in Ireland. Shout out to my Africans in Scotland. I'm still waiting for an invitation to come to Scotland and Ireland to build with the Africans of Scotland and Ireland. I'm still waiting for an invitation to Scotland and Ireland to come build with my Africans in Scotland and Ireland. But to my Africans in London, in Birmingham, and Luton, and Wolverhampton, and all points beyond, they're trying to reduce you over there too. That's why the rainbow movement in the UK is so strong in the black community. That's why the rainbow movement in the UK is so strong in the African community. The number of ethnic minorities in the United Kingdom has risen from a few tens of thousands in the 1950s to more than 3 million. 6% of the total population in the UK is African immigrants. While the number of whites in the UK is virtually static, higher fertility and net immigration means the number from ethnic minorities in the United Kingdom is growing by 3% per year. We have the numbers, African people. We have the numbers, African people. We have the numbers, African people, but we don't have the mindset for revolution. We have the population. We don't have the mindset for revolution. We have the population, but we don't have the organization. We have the population. We don't have the organization, because everybody knows African people would rather fight with each other than against the power structure. We would rather fight with each other than fight against the power structure. We would rather fight with each other than fight against the power structure. Let's continue. Let's continue. They said in Britain, in the UK, at the moment, ethnic minorities are 40% of London. Ethnic minorities are 40% of London. And if this continues, London, the most predominantly white country in the world, most predominantly white city of the most predominantly white country, will one day be dominated by African people, brothers and sisters. This is why they came out with, do you think it's a coincidence? Do you think it's a coincidence that they came out with the mixed race, multi-race, biracial movement in the year 2000? Why did they tell black people you could start calling yourself mixed race, bi-race, non-race, multiracial on the 2000 census. You know why they did that? To make it look like we had smaller population numbers than we actually do. That was not about embracing your multi-ethnic ancestry. That movement was not about embracing your multi-ethnic ancestry. That movement had nothing to do with embracing your multi-ethnic ancestry. It was about black people are taking over the world numerically. Black people are taking over the world numerically. And if we want it to look like they are not as large a population as they are, we have to convince African people to stop identifying as African. We have to convince African people to stop identifying as African. And if they have any white blood, they can say they mix race. If they got any Native American blood, they can call themselves a Native American. They can call themselves biracial. They can call themselves multiracial. This is why they did that. There's no coincidences under white supremacy. There's no coincidences under white supremacy. There's no coincidences under white supremacy. The reason they are promoting all these multi-ethnic identities is to manipulate the amount of Africans in the world. Manipulate the amount of Africans in the world so it looks like our numbers are much smaller than what they are. If I'm making sense to you, black man, give me a fist. If I'm making sense to you, black woman, give me a heart. If I'm making sense to you, black man, give me a fist. If I'm making sense to you, black woman, give me a heart. If I'm making sense to you, black man, give me a fist. If I'm making sense to you, black woman, give me a heart. If I'm making sense to you, black man, give me a fist. If I'm making sense to you, black woman, give me a heart. Brothers and sisters, we are living right now in the age of African extermination by any means necessary. This is why I'm so disappointed in the government of Kenya. This is why I'm so disappointed in the government of Kenya. This is why I'm so disappointed in the government of Kenya for allowing them, Moderna, to build a COVID vaccination factory in Kenya. Why does Africa need a COVID vaccination in Kenya? Why does East Africa need a COVID vaccination in Kenya? Africa has the lowest outbreak of COVID in the entire world. Africa has the lowest outbreak of COVID in the entire world. So why does Kenya need Moderna to build a COVID vaccination laboratory in Africa? You know why. You know why. COVID was supposed to decimate the African population. COVID was supposed to decimate the African population, and it didn't. Thanks to the African leaders who listened to Dr. Umar and others. Thanks to African leaders who listened to Dr. Umar and others. Thanks to African leaders who listened to Dr. Umar and others. And so I have to give credit where credit is due. That's the only thing in my lifetime that I think African leaders did right. That's the only thing in my lifetime that I think African leaders did right. It's the only thing in my lifetime that I think African leaders did right. But unfortunately, African leaders are starting to give in. Unfortunately, African leaders are starting to give in. African leaders cannot afford to be Negroes right now. African leaders cannot afford to be Negroes right now. African American leaders cannot afford to be Negroes right now. British African leaders cannot afford to be Negroes right now. Caribbean African leaders cannot afford to be Negroes right now. Central and South American African leaders cannot afford to be Negroes right now. Africa does not need AFRICOM. Africa does not need a COVID laboratory. Africa does not need AFRICOM, and Africa does not need a COVID laboratory, brothers and sisters. Do you think it's a coincidence Omicron was detected in South Africa? Shout out to my South African brothers and sisters. Shout out to my brothers and sisters in Soweto, and my brothers and sisters in Johannesburg, and my brothers and sisters in Pretoria, and my brothers and sisters on the Eastern Cape, in the Western Cape, my brothers and sisters in Khayelitsha, my brothers and sisters in Durban. Amala. Away to Mabuye, Africa. Today, brothers and sisters, is the anniversary of the Sharpeville massacre in South Africa. Today, March the 21st, 1960. March the 21st, 1960. March the 21st, 1960. 69 of our South African brothers and sisters were murdered in cold blood by the apartheid police, and another 170 was injured by the apartheid police when they gathered in a peaceful protest against the South African pass laws. It was peaceful. They didn't kill nobody. They didn't shoot nobody. They didn't hurt nobody. They didn't threaten nobody. And because they exercised their human right to resist oppression. See, forget the constitutional rights. I don't care about a white man constitutional right. I don't care about a white man constitution. I'm talking about a God-given human right to resist oppression. And because our brothers and sisters in Sharpeville, South Africa, because our brothers and sisters in Sharpeville, South Africa resisted oppression, they were shot down like dogs. That was today. The first day of the Aries sun, the revolutionary Aries sun. I'm not an Aries, I'm a Leo. But my birthday is the last third of Leo, which is influenced by Aries, which is controlled by my Orisha father, the divinity Ogun. So although I'm not an Aries, I stand in solidarity with my Aries Africans around the world because Ogun is the ruler of the Aries sun. But getting back to my point, South Africa, we stand with you. South Africa, we love you. Now let me go to my American Ethiopian Africans. Let me go to my Ethiopian Africans living in America. Y'all just had a protest that Dr. Umar knew nothing about. See, I need my immigrant Africans in America to unite with your American African brothers and sisters. Stop being bougie. Stop being tribalistic. Y'all had a march against the genocide in Ethiopia. We would have stood with you, but you did not invite us. Get your nose out the air. Get your nose out the air. Get your tribalism out your heart. And get your nose out. Africans, when you come to America, you can't afford to be bougie. You can't afford to be tribalistic because we all you got. Whether you like us or not, we all you got. And whether we like y'all or not, you are all we got. So I wish African people stop thinking that they can ride out with other races because none of them want you. Nobody wants you. Immigrant Africans, they don't want you. They'll use you for your intellectual skills. They'll use you against your American African brothers and sisters. They'll use you to go work in their corporations. They'll use you to help them come up with inventions. But if you are dedicated to the liberation of African people and the perpetuation of African civilization, when you come to America, you need to check in. Check in with your Pan-Africanist brothers and sisters. I'm not the only Pan-Africanist here. I'm the most influential, but I'm not the only one. But you check in with the Pan-Africanist. That march should have had hundreds of thousands of Africans standing up for Ethiopia, But some of our Ethiopian African immigrant brothers and sisters are too bougie to recognize that we are all one family. And that goes for everybody. That goes for everybody. We are all one family. We are all we got. Brothers and sisters. Brothers and sisters. Let me finish this article so I can let y'all go. Let me finish. I hope this is making sense to y'all. These are the conversations that should be on YouTube. But you go on YouTube, all they do is talk about each other, talk of slander, worrying about what I'm doing. They want to know what color my toothpaste is, what color is my socks, what I had for breakfast and lunch. These are the conversations black media is supposed to be about, brothers and sisters. Let me close this out. Let me close this out. This is a good article. I want to go to another quick article on this new, on this new AIDS variant. All of a sudden, they have a new AIDS variant. Wow. Isn't that interesting? We heard about AIDS in a minute. I mean, we know it ain't go nowhere. AIDS is ravaging African people, but we ain't heard about AIDS in a minute. All of a sudden, they got a new AIDS variant. Listen to this. New HIV variant discovered. New HIV variant discovered. New HIV variant discovered. Experts say it may be more infectious and severe than the original. Experts say the new AIDS variant may be more infectious and severe than the previous. Are y'all listening to me? Are y'all listening to your big brother, Dr. Ifa Tunde, this morning? They done created a new AIDS variant. They got another COVID variant. If you don't think this has something to do with the declining white population and the growing African population, you are out of your mind. You are out of your mind. Let's read the article. Let's read the article. A new strain of AIDS has been discovered in the Netherlands. Isn't that interesting? Because the Dutch are the Afrikaans of South Africa. The Dutch are the Afrikaans of South Africa. So if they found Omicron in South Africa, and now you got a new AIDS strain in Amsterdam, you got a new Omicron in South Africa, you got a new AIDS strand in the Netherlands, that means that the scientists of the Netherlands, the white racist Dutch scientists of the Netherlands, I hope my Amsterdam Africans are listening. I hope my Rotterdam Africans are listening. Your scientists, and those of us who know our history of white supremacy, we know that the Dutch, if I'm not mistaken, were the first in the African slave trade after the Arabs. The Dutch were the first in the African slave trade after the Arabs. The Dutch were the first in the African slave trade after the Arabs, and they're the original colonizers of South Africa. So America knows they can trust the Dutch to come up with some diseases. So now you got a new variant of HIV/AIDS discovered in the Netherlands. I want my Africans in the Netherlands to hear me. I want my Rotterdam Africans and my Amsterdam Africans to understand they just created a new strain of AIDS, and they're going to use you as a test kit. They're going to use you as the lab rats. So please be careful when you go to the doctor, my Amsterdam and Rotterdam Africans. They about to hit the African world with the new AIDS. They about to hit the African world with the new strain of AIDS. So now let me loop this back. I hope I'm making sense. I hope I'm making sense. I hope I'm making sense. They about to loop the AIDS back. Look what they doing. They done rainbowed our kids. They done confused our kids with the rainbow. Now they got all these black kids wanting to be rainbows. They got all these black kids confused by the rainbow. Now they doubling back. They're doubling back with a new strain of AIDS. Guess what they're going to do now? And I know all of you know the answer. Guess what they're going to do now to all the black people who got drafted by the rainbow movement that Barack Obama unleashed? Guess what's going to happen to all the young black rainbows in Africa, and the young black rainbows in America, and the young black rainbows in Canada, and in Britain, and France, and Brazil, and Jamaica? And guess what's going to happen? Australia, South Pacific, the Samoan Islands. Guess what's going to happen now? They're going to drop that new AIDS. They're going to drop the new AIDS in the black rainbow communities across the world. I told you it was genocide. I told you it was genocide. I told you, I've been telling you for 22 years, it's genocide. So for all my rainbow brothers, please protect yourself. If you got somebody in your family who belong to the rainbow community and they African, if you got any African rainbow members in your community, you better tell them now is the time to strap up sexually. Brothers and sisters, go and get your magnums. Go and get your Trojans. Go and get your Durex. Go and get them. Ladies, African sisters, I'm talking to all of you everywhere in the world. You cannot afford to be having unprotected sex anymore. That's out. It's out. They got a new strain of AIDS right now. Let me finish reading this. About to go grab me a box of Magnum Thins right now. No, I'm not. That was just a little humor. Okay. A new strain of AIDS has been discovered in the Netherlands. The strain, dubbed the VB variant, appears to lead to more severe disease more quickly. People with this strain also tended to have a higher viral load. It's the VB HIV. Make sure y'all hashtag it. Let all the young people know there's a new AIDS variant, VB HIV. VB, you know what I call VB? Victory over the blacks. Victory over the blacks. VB HIV. Let's read the article. The COVID pandemic has shown that mutations in a virus can significantly change a pathogen's infectiousness and severity. New research from the University of Oxford finds a new variant of HIV. New research from the University of Oxford finds a new variant of HIV, the virus that causes AIDS, that is potentially more infectious and could more seriously affect the immune system. Listen to this. My Dutch Africans, listen. So far, 109 people, most of whom live in the Netherlands, have the new variant. So far, 109 people, most of whom live in the Netherlands, have the variant. So far, 109 people, most of whom live in the Netherlands, have the variant. The new strain, called the VB, Victory over Blacks, damages the immune system, weakens people's ability to fight everyday infection, and is much faster than previous HIV strain. It kill you faster. It kill you faster. The viral load is 3.5 to 5 times higher than the original AIDS load. Listen, the viral load is 3.5 to 5.5 times higher than the current strain. The cell decline of the new VB HIV variant is twice as fast as the old AIDS. So you die twice as fast. You get sick twice as fast. Who believes that this was not made in a lab? Who believes that the new VB HIV was randomly created by Mother Nature? Who believes that? Because if you believe that, I need to give you a psychological evaluation right now. I'm telling you now, for my brothers and sisters in the rainbow community, I might not agree with you. I don't agree with your lifestyle. It is an attack on the African family and the future of our civilization. But I still love you as African brothers and sisters. I still love you as African brothers and sisters. As long as you are on this earth, there's a chance for you to come back home to your original African consciousness. So I don't hate you. I want you to protect yourself. For all African women out there, part of the strategy of the new VB HIV, African women, I'm talking to black heterosexual women right now. All African women, heterosexual, bisexual, listen. Part of the logic of the original AIDS was to infect the rainbow brothers so they could infect the hetero sisters. Now you got a new VB HIV. That means black women need to be more careful. You cannot have unprotected sex unless you are sure. Black women, you cannot have unprotected sex unless you are sure. Black women, there's a new strain of AIDS out. It's in the Netherlands. 109 people have it. It will be in America by next month. I promise you. It will be in the UK by next month. I promise you. It will be in the Caribbean by next week. I promise you. It will be in Africa by next Friday. I promise you. It will be in Central and South America, the South Pacific, and Australia by next month. Black woman, go get you a box. Get your box of Trojans. Get your box of Durex. If you need some jelly, go get you some jelly. Grab that box of Magnums. I'm being dead serious. And brothers, not just rainbow brothers, heterosexual brothers. Because this new strain, I think, can go from woman to man a lot quicker. This new strain can go from woman to man a lot quicker. So if a black woman lays down with a brother with the VB HIV, and then you lay down with a sister who cheated on you with a brother who had the VB HIV, now you're going to wake up with the VB HIV. Brothers and sisters. Stephen Miller's the Magnum's brother. Magnum over here, my brother. I'm a Magnum man. I'm just kidding. Let us stay focused. Let us stay focused. Let us stay focused. Bare skin, ecstasy, or thin. Let us stay focused. But guess what? Research came out years ago. Research came out years ago that said the spermicide in the condom helps the AIDS virus live longer. Did y'all hear what I just said? They said the spermicide in the condom can help the AIDS virus live a little longer. So the spermicide will kill the sperm, but it can help you attract AIDS. Lord have mercy. I don't think y'all heard me. I'm going to say it again. I don't think y'all heard me, so I'm going to say it again. The research on the spermicide inside the condom, the research on the spermicide found that although the spermicide kills the sperm, it helps the AIDS virus replicate. It helps the AIDS virus replicate. So you might not want to use spermicide. You might just want to go latex or non-latex without the spermicide, because the research I read, granted, a few years ago, but the research I read said the spermicide kills the sperm, but helps the AIDS virus live. Brothers and sisters, stay protected. Brothers, don't cook no cookies with no glove on. Don't bake no cupcakes without no glove on. If you're going to make some Cinnabons, got to put some gloves on to cook in the kitchen. If you're going to be baking some Cinnabons this summer, because spring is here. Yesterday was the spring equinox. Spring is here. Yesterday was the spring equinox, brothers and sisters. Spring is here. Yesterday was the spring equinox. Yesterday was the spring equinox. And I know women going to start dressing sexy. Our sisters looks beautiful. It get warm out there. They be having that shea butter on them cinnamon thighs and that shea butter on those nutmeg thighs and those hot peanut butter thighs and that butter almond thighs, them butter pecan thighs, them African vanilla thighs, them African lemon thighs, that African. I know they be looking good, fellas. Our sisters be looking good with their natural hair and their little twisties. And I know you're going to want to bake some cupcakes this summer. Put your gloves on. I know you're going to want to butter up some Cinnabons this summer. Put your gloves on. Sisters, if he ain't got no gloves, he can't come into the kitchen. Sisters, if he ain't got no gloves on, don't let him cook. When he show up at the crib, you tell him, do you have your gloves? Because nobody doing no cooking in this kitchen without no gloves on. You don't bake no Cinnabons in this house without no gloves on. You don't get no cookies in this house without no gloves on. I'm serious, y'all. I'm serious. You got a new AIDS out there. Let's finish, see what they say. Let's finish what they say. The VB variant ability to facilitate transmission, damage the immune system, and interrupt treatment. Wow. Did y'all hear what I just said? Did y'all hear what I just said? Did y'all hear what I just said? The new VB HIV can interrupt the treatment you get. So the AIDS medications won't even work. You think Mother Nature created something like that? They said that the new VB HIV, the new VB HIV can interrupt the medication for AIDS. Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy. No, what we saying? Okay, let me see this. Brother Winston. Yes, we are the only continent. Africa is the only continent dominated by her own children. Yes, Africa is the richest continent. So the richest continent is still demographically dominated by her own original children. The reason we don't control the resources, Brother Winston, because I'm not going to tolerate, and I don't know if you were, but I don't want no disrespect thrown at my continental African brothers and sisters. I don't want any disrespect thrown at my continental African brothers and sisters. The reason we don't control the resources is during the African revolutions of the 1960s and 70s, during the African revolutions from 1950s to the 1970s. They killed off most of the real revolutionaries, overthrew others, imprisoned the remaining ones, and they put Negro-Peons in charge of the new African states. They put Negro-Peons in charge of the new African states after the CIA killed the real ones, overthrew the real ones. They then put Negroes in there, okay? And those Negroes signed deals with the Western bankers and nations that allowed them to plunder the resources of Africa for pennies on the dollar. That's the problem. And African leaders are still selling Africa out for pennies on the dollar. That's why there's going to have to be a global African youth revolution. And by youth, I mean under 50. There's going to have to be a global African youth revolution. And this is why, brothers, you got to get you a revolutionary sister. Sisters, you got to get you a revolutionary brother. You can't date just to be dating. You have to date for African revolution. I keep telling y'all this. I keep telling you can't date just for dating. You have to date for African revolution. If the man you dating, sister, ain't a Pan-Africanist, what you with him for? If the woman you dating, brother, ain't a Pan-Africanist, what are you with her for? This is why I can't date sisters with fake hair. This is why I can't date sisters with fake hair. This is why I can't date sisters with fake hair. No disrespect to my beautiful African sisters with hair. It's going to take time for you to come into your queendom. I understand that. It's going to take time for you to recognize you don't need that. I'm not disrespecting you, but I'm saying where I am in my development, where I am in my conscious political development, where I am, I cannot go back. I can raise your consciousness as a member of the community, but there's no way I can marry a sister who's at that low level of self-consciousness. I can't do it because I got to go back and waste time on something I shouldn't have to waste time on. I'm not being disrespectful. I'm just saying where I am. I can't go back and re-Africanize a sister. I should have already found a sister who was either Africanized or on her way to being Africanized. Same thing with black women. You need to find a man who's Africanized or on his way to being Africanized. But I cannot. We got to stop making babies with Negro-Peans. Stop reproducing Negro-Peans. Stop doing it, brothers and sisters. Stop it. That's why when we have the conscious singles convention, when we have the conscious singles convention, when we have the conscious singles convention, you got to have natural hair to come in. You got to have, ladies, I'm telling you now, when I drop the conscious singles convention flyer, when I drop the conscious singles convention flyer, when I drop the conscious singles convention, if you ain't natural, you can't come. I'm sorry. We got to put an end to this. We got to put an end to this. That's why brothers who got the snow bunny crisis cannot join any of my movements. If you got the snow bunny crisis, black man, you cannot join any of my movements. This is 2022. We ain't got time for this. This is 2022. Let me continue. It says it depends on your activity, how many different partners you have. People who have multiple partners should undergo HIV testing more often. Renewed focus on HIV. Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy. The amount of virus measured in a drop of blood is a surrogate of disease progression. The higher the amount, the more likely someone will progress and become ill. We suspect many times this is because the type of HIV that they got was more aggressive, more virulent. There is no evidence that any of the current treatments work on the new HIV strain. There is no evidence that any of the current medications work with the new HIV strain. There is no evidence, brothers and sisters. Rainbow community, please listen. Rainbow community, please listen. There is no evidence that any of the current HIV medications will work if you contract the new VB HIV strain. I told y'all. They sent Barack Obama into the black community to rainbow our kids. And now they're going to drop off the new HIV variant on them same kids. They sent Obama in to rainbow our kids. And now they're going to drop off the new HIV variant to those kids. We fall for the okie doke every time. We fall for the okie doke. One more article. One more article. CNBC. Health experts predict uptick in U.S. COVID cases. This is yesterday. Yesterday's news. A new BA.2 variant. Yesterday, a new variant of COVID. Yesterday, BA.2 variant of COVID. You know what BA stand for? Black Africans. BA, Black Africans. They never tell you what the initials mean. They never tell you what the initials mean. They never tell what the initials mean. BA variant. U.S. health experts are warning a highly contagious COVID Omicron variant. So this is a new variant of Omicron, BA.2, could lead to another uptick in domestic COVID. They say the White House chief medical advisor, Dr. Anthony Fauci, said BA.2 is about 50% to 60% more transmissible than Omicron. Did y'all hear that? The BA.2 variant is 60% more transmissible than the Omicron. The BA.2 COVID variant is 60% more transmissible than Omicron. Dr. Umar, who are you working with? Do you believe in partnering with any pre-existing organizations? I believe in temporary coalitions with other organizations. If you're working on something that's progressive and that doesn't contradict what I stand for as a Pan-Africanist, you can reach out to me. But if you're funded by white people, if you have white people in your organization, then we cannot have a temporary coalition. I do not partner. Team Pan-African does not partner with Negro organizations funded by non-Africans or who allow non-Africans to participate. If a non-African can join your organization, if a non-African can fund your organization, I want nothing to do with you. Are we clear? So if you meet those, and nobody has the snowbody crisis, nobody has been rainbow recruited, if you meet those requirements, reach out and we can have a temporary coalition, nothing permanent because people change, agendas change, loyalties change, nothing permanent. U.S. health experts are warning an emerging highly contagious COVID Omicron variant called BA.2 could lead to another uptick. White House Chief Medical Advisor Dr. Anthony Fauci said BA.2 is 50% more transmissible than Omicron, but does not appear to be more severe. It does have increased transmission capability. The variant has already caused cases to increase in China and parts of Europe. It accounts for 25 or 30% of new COVID cases. They expect more cases to come out this summer. We should be prepared. COVID has not gone away. The CDC, Center for Disease Creation, 32,000 new COVID cases Saturday. 32,000 new COVID cases Saturday, 958 COVID deaths. Global African Extermination Project. Global African Depopulation Agenda. Brothers and sisters, that's my message for today. My message for today is, do not trust the white power structures, medical institutions. They're trying to get rid of us because we are the most populous people on the planet, and we sit on the richest land in the world. We are the most populous people on the planet, and we sit on the richest land in the world. We are the most populous people on the planet, and we sit on the richest piece of land in the world. That's why you have COVID. That's why you have Omicron. That's why you have Delta. That's why you have BA.2. And now you have a new case of AIDS. New strain of AIDS. Brothers and sisters, the most honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey said, a people without authority and respect